We are close to Chapel Hill.
Welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of the Burlington City Council. Today is June 4th, 2019. I'd like to take a moment to ask everyone to please silence all electronic devices. At this time we turn to Councilmember Butler for tonight's invocation.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this very special time of year when the weather is obliging to outdoor activities and our neighbors and friends are about. It's wonderful to experience all the many joyous events throughout our community. This is the time of year that many are graduating and transitioning to the next phase of life, and many are getting married, new families are forming, and others are planning or embarking on vacations. For all of these special moments, Lord, we pause to remember that without you, these things would not be possible. Thank you for the joys that you provide each and every one of us every day of our lives. As we begin tonight's meeting, we ask for your guidance in the decisions that we make. There are many issues that are before us on a daily basis, and it's difficult oftentimes to find the resources to handle them all. You are the great provider, and we trust you will lead us in prioritizing our needs and guide us to the necessary resources to accomplish the works of your will. We ask that you bless this council with knowledge and wisdom to make correct decisions. We ask that you bless our staff and those that support and implement our policies and our body of work each and every day. And we ask that you bless each and every person impacted by the very decisions that we make. May we remember that through you all things are possible. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We are honored to welcome back Mr. Christopher Tate with the Amateur Radio Club to speak about their annual field day. Welcome back. We missed you last year.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back. It's been a whirlwind year for me up at Penn State, but I've enjoyed my time up there this past year, and it's definitely good to be back. Although I would definitely take Pennsylvania's weather, mid-70s today, compared to the 80s we had here. According to my watch, it is June. That means it's field day time. That's why I usually show up here. This year, field day, as always, the fourth full weekend of June. This year, that is Saturday, June 22nd, and Sunday, June 23rd. The times, of course, have not changed. 2 p.m., running through the overnight hours till 2 p.m. on Sunday. This year, we are changing the location. In years past, the folks over at the Alamance County EOC have been gracious to allow us to use some of their parking lot and a couple of their facilities. This year, we decided to change things up a little bit. We'll be at the Burlington Police and Fire Training Center. That's at 128 Quarry Road over in Haw River. It's just a little bit further east on 70. Field Day is still the pinnacle emergency preparedness exercise for amateur radio operators. Some of us do handle it as a contest. The club I participated with up at Penn State last year did very much have a contesting aspect to their operation, but ours is a little bit more laid back. You know, we make sure that we are able to exchange as many digital and vocal messages with other amateur radio stations around the state and around the region as we can in those 24 hours, so that we are best prepared to exchange vital information in mass amount quickly and accurately. It's also a great opportunity for us to meet the public. Field Day is a public event, so all members of the public that are here in attendance are most certainly welcome to come see our operation, explore what ham radio can offer you in an emergency, and we even have a radio station specially set up that members of the public can try their hand at radio, see how far across the country you can get without needing a cell tower or the internet, tin cans with string, none of that. All goes through the atmosphere. It's awesome. It's fun. So once again, Field Day is June 22nd and June 23rd from 2 p.m. Saturday till 2 p.m. on Sunday at 128 Quarry Road in Haw River. Look forward to seeing all of you council members and the general public. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Good to have you back. At this time, we have a special presentation to council on behalf of the New League Society. At this time, I'd like to call forward Mr. Rhett Davis and Ms. Janet Burgess.
Good evening, council. Happy belated birthday. A year and a half ago, we picked out your present. It's taken us a year and a half to get it wrapped, and we finally delivered it about 2 weeks ago. We had to go through a lot of hoops to get it done, but had wonderful partners to work with, starting with the city of Burlington. First part of your present, you get 2 presents. One of them is the island and Webb Avenue behind the police station. The city demoed that for us and worked with DOT and the city. All that concrete was taken up, the drains fixed, and we replanted that to one of our landscape projects. The second project is the landscaping of the 2 underpasses, which the first one is completed there. That is the Church Street underpass. We've worked on both sides, and the next one has already been contracted out, and that's going to be the Fisher Street underpass. DOT took all the brush and material off of it. But here, this is Church Street right here. On both sides, we are so fortunate. We've got a very good relationship with the North Carolina Railroad now. And of course, we were reminded years ago that the railroad's only interested in 2 things, Harold, and that's moving freight and moving people, and landscape is not one of their objectives. But they've been, I think we won some brownie points with the trestle in Glen Raven in the way it turned out, and what a great project that was. So with that track record, they've allowed us to do this. And so we have finished this project. Living Landscapes was our contractor for this one, and we're going to be moving down to Fisher Street here in the next few weeks. That's all been demoed. DOT did that for us. We're a great relationship to be able to work on their right-of-way, which they don't really like people on their right-of-way. But like I said, it's all about relationships. And we're just fortunate. This is something we wanted to do for you for your 125th birthday. I'm sorry that it is late in delivery, but the weather held us up somewhat. And we're getting all the permissions and people working together. It's there. We're excited to give it to you. We'll maintain it for 2 years, replace anything that dies. We'll keep it watered, and we'll keep it mulched and groomed for you for 2 years and give you another gift to the city. We're very happy to do this, and we're excited about it. I think it's part of our downtown commitment, our commitment to downtown for beautification and part of the revitalization of downtown Burlington. Janice, I believe, gave us some brochures on our Arboretum project, which is now moving forward again. I had another brochure, and I apologize for not bringing it to you, but we have planted, I think it's 14,000 trees and shrubs. This is our birthday. We are 10 years old last year, and we have planted 14,000 trees and shrubs, and most of them have gone in the Burlington area. So we're real proud of that. So I just want to say happy birthday to you. I apologize for getting your presents to you a little late, but I hope you'll enjoy them for years to come. Thank you.
Rhett, why don't you and Janice speak to council briefly about your new employee working at the Arboretum?
About the new employee?
Yes, your new project manager.
Oh, new project manager. Okay. Well, there's a lot of moving parts to the Arboretum. And most of it at this point involves engineers, both civil engineers and structural engineers. And they speak the language Rhett doesn't speak. Rhett doesn't know much about what has to be stamped other than letters. So when we get into the technicalities of this, we begin to back off. You know, I can tell you a red oak from a white oak, a chestnut oak from an overcup oak, but when it comes to reading maps, especially engineer maps, I go clueless. We are fortunate that we are taking on, or he's agreed to help us, is Jim Lawrence. I think you know his history here with the city, excellent track record, and very well respected within the city and in the community and with contractors and engineers. So he is going to be our new liaison and project manager to help us through this project with the sidewalks, the new bridges and everything. So he can speak the language, he knows what needs to be done, he knows who's button to push and take care of things. So we're excited that Jim has joined us, and I think this is a great compliment to our project. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
No, thank you. It looks beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome.
People have made comments about it, and we greatly appreciate it.
Well, we're behind schedule because of weather. I think you know that. I think everybody's controlled by the weather. But we're moving ahead, it's dry, and we're excited. The addition of Jim will help speed things up. So.
And I appreciate the beautification on those underpasses. We don't normally think about underpasses in the history of the community, but those were built prior to World War II and have been a part of our community for more than half of our history.
Yeah, well, I remember when we moved here in '86, there was still a coal dump up there by Newland Hardware, and full of kudzu all over the place. Well, I remember working with maybe Jeff. They sprayed the kudzu out, and there was a toilet under the kudzu up there, and that was part of, I guess, beautification at that time, but there was. Somebody, I guess, came and got it,
Said they wanted
but
it.
that side of the railroad track hasn't been budged. But it does add a lot. We get more complaints about Webb Avenue than any other street in the city, about what can you do? What can you make it look pretty and stuff? And as the downtown's changing and revitalizing, I think this is just a nice, they dovetail together very well. We're just glad to be a part of it. We are, and we appreciate this partnership. You are our biggest partner. Thank you.
Thank you. This time we recognize interim city clerk, Beverly Smith.
Members of council, it is my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest. I ask if there are any potential conflicts in tonight's agenda items.
Before council are minutes from the March 4th, 2019 work session. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? Minutes have been approved. Next is an add-on to our consent agenda, item C, to set a date of public hearing to renew Maple Avenue corridor plan. Do I hear a motion to approve this add-on to the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has been approved. Next is our agenda, including the add-on item. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda with the addition?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda with the add-on as requested. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has been approved. Next is our consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions, please let us know. Item A, to adopt a resolution setting a date of public hearing for June 18, 2019 to consider the 3530 Harris Road contiguous voluntary annexation. Item B, to adopt a banking resolution with American National Bank authorizing the city manager, director of finance and risk management, and the accounting treasury manager as signed on the account. Item C, to set a date of public hearing for June 18, 2019 to receive community input on the draft for new Maple Avenue corridor plan. Do I hear a motion to approve the foregoing consent agenda?
Move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has been approved. We have two public hearings this evening. Item 1, a public hearing has been set to consider adoption of the proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, including changes in inspection fees and water and sewer rates, and the adoption of the community development budget. This time we recognize City Manager Hardin Watkins.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is going to sound very similar to what we talked about at the work session. A few modifications, and I shortened up a little bit in terms of my presentation. So what I want to do tonight is share the highlights of the FY19-20 proposed budget document. And I do also make reference, Councilman, you had received this notebook that has obviously a bit more detail than what's included in the PowerPoint this evening. And that would be the document that you would vote on this evening if you vote. So this year, we had a handful of challenges and opportunities that sort of set the course for our budget work. Obviously, one of our goals is to balance with no property tax rate increase. It's not surprising to anyone. We also want to obviously do that while maintaining the same level of service for our citizens. Inflation is always a concern for us. Just cost of most everything increases constantly. All the goods and services that we buy, so that's always something that's on our minds. We also have increasing costs of our personnel expenses, health insurance, our merit increases, and our retirement system all saw increases this year that have a nice price tag on each of those. Some other of our challenges was how do we proactively maintain our city facilities, how to replace our aging equipment, how to replace our aging fleet. And those are obviously some of the big tickets. And our goal obviously is to try to stay ahead of that as best we can. And we struggle with that each year, how we're going to take care of all the needs we have for things that are just wearing out. Sales tax growth and reliability this year is very strong. We felt comfortable in doing some projections in that arena. We're very appreciative of the legislature's current sales tax structure. That has been a positive for us, and we think the budget team believes it will continue strong retail economy and no regulatory changes, that we'll continue to feel good about that. That's fueling our major revenue growth in the budget this year. So additional challenges is how do we provide for our merit-based pay adjustments, which we like to try to do for our employee team. And then we also had implementation of year 3 of the pay classification study that's done by the Piedmont Pride Regional Council of Governments. And we divided our employee workforce into 3 groups, and this was the 3rd group on a 3-year cycle. And so we want to fund those recommendations to keep our pay in a market where it needs to be in the market in our region. And then one of the additional challenges and opportunities is that we have an proposed increase in our building permit rates that's included in your notebook to offset the annual costs of purchasing a SmartGov software package, which is a real service improvement for all the folks that utilize our development services. And what we try to do is set those fees in the inspections program such that they will recoup the $70,000 that will cost us each year for software maintenance and updates and that sort of thing. So that one offsets. We do believe there is a direct benefit to the users of that system that will offset the system. It's unusual that we find an opportunity to do that where we can charge sort of an exact fee for the user. So this one, we feel good about that. Additional challenges, we have 4 new positions that made it through the process this year. One is in sanitation, one of our direct service positions. That's a sanitation equipment operator 3 position. I think council will remember from a work session, the public works director was able to find additional savings and or cuts to offset the cost of this one. So this was a net no increase for this position based on some other cuts and savings. Recreation, we are adding a recreational horticulture specialist in this fiscal year. That will be dedicated to taking care of Willowbrook Arboretum. So we'll have a person who has some horticultural skills that we just don't have on our team at this moment that will be focused at Willowbrook Arboretum. And then finally, we have a position, Economic Development Project Manager. In the Economic Development Department, as I shared with you, you've heard in last month's presentation, with all the big projects that we have coming and all the big things that we're working on, we feel like we need some additional resources here. Just as a reminder to everybody, council certainly familiar with this, these are all of our city departments that are included in the general fund. I'll move through that. So some of the highlights of the budget this year. The proposed budget is $59,297,140. Again, no property tax increase. We proposed the same tax rate, 0.5973 per 100 evaluation. Funding increase for our health insurance this year is around $400,000. We're mandated by the state for a retirement system increase that nets about $331,000 for us this year. We'll see a similar number like that over the next 2 years. It's already been announced by the state. Merit salary adjustments are around 2%. We have the 3 new positions I just mentioned. We have a capital replacement and improvement program trying to stay ahead, and then our Link Transit subsidy increases this year due to the end of a state grant that we knew was ending. That's about $154,000. So on the revenue side, as I mentioned, we do have some growth in projected property tax revenue. That's mostly due to new development that's happened in the community. We have growth in our projected sales tax revenues, as I said, due to consumer activity. And then I've already mentioned the building permit revenues. Some of that is, we have some of those fees going, some of that projection is increasing due to the economy. We just are obviously doing more permits, and then that $70,000 is to offset the purchase of the SmartGov software. On our expenditure side, the challenge that we lay out to our department heads each year, and we commend them for working with us and helping us get to this number, but we ask them to submit a limited growth budget, that if they propose a new item or a new program, we ask them to bring a corresponding cut of some sort in their area or some sort of revenue enhancement. Obviously, the inspections item is a good example of bringing a revenue item to help offset that. And again, I'll just be repetitive on the same increases here that we've proposed. We've got some maintenance and service contracts that I haven't mentioned already, and then setting aside some funding for pension liability funding in the future, and then obviously utilities constantly is increasing for us. So our emphasis, obviously we want to provide great day-to-day services across the city, and that means different things in different departments, but we are focused on that and want to make sure we provide adequate budget to do so. The other things we're focused on this year is improving our neighborhoods and the commitment to that. And there's a lot of different ways that we do that. The council's familiar with these. Our community improvement program is our proactive community codes enforcement program. We've kicked off the youth solutions coordinator. And you met Vanessa Diggs, who was started in May of 2019, that will be making that program very active coming into next year. We have some direct service staff added, as I mentioned, in sanitation and park maintenance. We have some incredible economic development momentum. The Anthony Road site, site number 2, and site number 3 is on the horizon. The Western Electric, we're trying to bring that plan to life that the AIA expert team put together for us. We have our Renew Maple Avenue corridor study, which council heard the detailed presentation last night, and then our handful of downtown initiatives, including development finance concepts that could come from school and government. In policing strategies, we maintain our national accreditation standards. We work really hard to stay connected in the community. We have a robust training program. We have great equipment. And so all of that obviously comes with a price tag, and that shows up in the budget as well. Everyone's excited. Our new animal shelter, the construction is progressing nicely. We're on schedule, and council, just as a reminder, once the new building is done, we'll move out of the old building in the new building and operate in the new building, and then the construction company will move towards renovating the old building, and then when that's complete, we'll have the whole thing operational. And then finally, Burlington Connected, as everybody knows, is a way we try to make sure we stay connected to our citizens and find ways for people to get lost to us that need attention. Here are some of the major infrastructure and capital items in the budget. A small garbage truck, it's a rear loader. We have a side loader truck that needs replacement. We have 50% of the cost of a fire truck. We'll handle the other 50% of that in the next fiscal year. This is a long lead time before the fire trucks are able to do that. We have 14 police cars in the budget. We have $900,000 for street resurfacing. We have various computer hardware around the city, $428,000. We are working with Greensboro and have a partnership to deal $250,000 for each, for us and Greensboro to run a fiber connection that will connect downtown Greensboro to downtown Burlington. We're real excited about that for some interoperability, and I think there's some other things that can happen over time. Fairchild, it says Fairchild Stadium. It's Burlington Athletic Stadium, but at Fairchild Park, we're regrading the outfield in the next season out in the right field. It has some problems, and we're trying to get that in the shape that it should be, looking to the future. And then we're adding a new roof at Fairchild Recreation Center. Here's the overall budget in total. As you see, obviously we're required to have a balanced budget, so you see the revenues and expenditures are balanced. $59,297,140. Those are the various categories on the left. And the revenue, sources of revenue on the right, you see all of our city function areas. And here's that same bit of information displayed in a graph, in a pie chart. You see sales tax at the top there in Aqua at 13, a little over 13.8 million. Real property taxes in the lavender at 26.5 million, and then our state share taxes is the purple. Those are our three largest categories. That's about 5.7 million. General fund revenue sources, and this is provided as well to give a little more detail about what those various sources are. That's what that looks like in a pie chart. And you see that to the left, fire department is in lavender at 8.8 million. Public Works in the dark red is about 8.7 million. Recreation 7.1 million in the light purple. And then police in the aqua below at about 16.9. Those are our four largest departments. Transitioning from general fund now to talk about water resources fund. We have the 6 categories in water resources fund: repair and construction, plants and facilities, laboratories, composting, customer service, billing, and debt service. The proposed budget in water resources is a little over 30 million, 30,618,899. That's a 2% increase proposed in the water sewer rates. That helps us offset our inflationary increases and allows some continued capital improvements. Our average residential customer is seeing an increase of about 90 cents a month. That's for someone using 5,000 gallons of water sewer. The proposed budget in water resources contains funding for our employee health insurance, our OPEB funding, and mandated retirement contribution increases. Some of the key expenditures, we did fund all the capital requests requested by water resources. Those are funded at 100%. One of our major efforts this year will be an automated meter reading project. Council heard some about that a month or two ago. We're also going to kick off a water and sewer master plan, and then we have a handful of replacement projects. So the projects, as we mentioned, the Greason Road truck stop has a water line replacement, Little Alamance Creek. We have some inflow and infiltration reduction, 2-inch water line replacements, replacing some sodium hypochlorite tanks, re-roofing some buildings, patching and resurfacing roads within our various facilities and plants, and then a handful of items related to the Zimpro boiler. So here's the overall showing this budget is balanced at $30,618,899. Obviously revenues on the left and expenditures on the right by category or facility. The pie chart for the Water Resources Fund, we see the top left, our water rents are $11.5 million, and then sewer rents are in the purple. Down at the bottom is about $16.36 million. Expenditure side of water resources, I'll highlight the 3 largest categories to the left. Sewer expenditures are about $8.389 million. The water and sewer shared resources, where we're combining water and sewer, $9.7 million, and then just water direct expenses is $8.5 million. Again, mentioned water sewer rates. We're proposing a 2% increase. That nets about 2 cents a day for a 2,500 gallon a month user, and about 3 cents a day for a 5,000 gallon per month user. Let me transition now to transportation fund. Before I jump into that, I will remind everyone this is Fare Free Week for Link Transit, celebrating our 3rd anniversary. So if somebody wants to try out Link or see what it's like or try a route they haven't, for the rest of this week, they can do that for no charge, and our transportation team would encourage everyone to take a chance to get out there and check on that. It's a major success, as you all know, across the city. We've had over 250,000 riders in the first 3 years. Just to remind the goal, Mike Nunn does not like it when I speak about this subject, but I don't say the goal is to be clean, be safe, and be on time. That's the mantra. So, and we do all three of those things. What you'll see this year is there's funding of about $407,000 for operations from the city general fund. We have a one-time capital expense for $250,000, which is for sidewalks and shelters. The proposed overall budget for transportation is $2.1 million. Reminder, we get 80% reimbursement for capital items from the federal government and 50% reimbursement for operations. We also have a handful of partners that continue to help us with the expenses of transit, and we're greatly appreciative of those folks. Stormwater fund, no change proposed in that rate. That's again separate fund from the others we've mentioned. The rate is $5 a month, and we have about 22,500 customers. That budget is proposed this year about $1.2 million. Stormwater highlights, obviously we're trying to reduce the discharge of pollutants. We're trying to keep an eye on illicit discharge. We do a public outreach and education program, and we try to assist residents with drainage and flooding problems all around the city. So here are the remaining funds that we have in the city. Controlled Substance Abuse Fund, RICO, General Capital Reserve, MPO Transportation, Guilford McIntosh, Water Capital Reserve, Sewer Capital Reserve, Municipal Service District, which is how we fund the EDC, the Rehab Loan Fund, the Rental Rehab Loan Program, CDBG Program, and the Home Program. You'll see there's an asterisk there. We're still waiting on some confirmation from the federal government and other agencies, but those are our best estimates at this point in time. So let me just wrap up, share just a few things. I think as the budget team, we actually sort of started the process with these things on our mind, and we sort of ended, and these things are still on our mind, the things that we want to talk about over the next year. But there's some long-term fundamentals that we're trying to think about and be aware of. As I mentioned a moment ago, we're starting some contributions for the first time out of our general fund to begin to take care of our long-term liabilities related to pension benefits, and that's funding for what's available in the local government retirement system. That has a bond rating impact, and if we show our credit rating analysts at some point in the future, if we end up in the bond market, they will appreciate the fact that we are making contributions from our general fund to help offset that liability. So this year, we have budgeted money from general fund, we've budgeted money from the water fund that will go into a pot to begin to set aside some money for our future liabilities related to benefits. We also want to find ways to establish other targeted reserves as we have time. Obviously, there's so many demands operationally and capital-wise. It's hard to do that, but it's certainly on the mind of our budget team is how can we find other ways to begin to set aside some funds for the things we know we have coming in the future. We have made it a practice that we talk about financial sustainability with all our departments. Our department heads will tell you they're probably tired of hearing that speech from me. It has become part of our everyday conversation, and it's about controlling expenses, but it's also more than that. Are there opportunities to how we can do things different? Can we retool? Can we find revenue sources we haven't been into before? Are there lines of things that we can but bring in revenue that offset some of our expenses? So that is something we talk about a lot, and I think that's going to be happening not only just all across the state, but probably all across the country for municipalities and for county government. It's getting harder and harder to figure out how to kind of sustain ourselves with the rising costs that we see in various areas of the budgets. We have some new pay plan components that are developed in conjunction with the Piedmont Tribe Regional Council of Governments. That's the largest overall component of our budget. And we feel like some of the things that we're putting into place are definitely going to help us on the what I call the long-term fundamental side, which is sort of getting a hold of and gaining control of our expenses that continue to rise each year. There's a lot of detail around that. There are some big concepts and there's some small things we're doing as well. And then capital improvement project planning is also important. We're constantly looking forward. I know that's very, very important to the council. We envision over the next 12 months having lots of conversations with you. We obviously, like I said before, we want to engage our folks over at Davenport, who's our independent financial advisor, to begin to help us start thinking about what capital plans may look like and what's the best way to put together a plan of finance for some of the big picture things the council has designated as priorities. We also, one of the things that is very, very important, and I know it's on everybody's mind, that as we tackle new things, what does that do to our operational expenses, right? So how do you calculate that as you think about these projects? I know that's something that's important to council members, and we want to be focused on that. A couple of the biggest things at the top of your list, this is no surprise to any of you, is Western Rec Center and police station. So there'll be a lot of conversation over the next 12 months or so about how we get a plan of finance together for those two projects. So finally, just as we continue to look forward, and this is some of this is thinking more about the operation side of the house, but we want something I want to spend some time on next year is looking at priority-based budgeting and some of those at the minimum, get some of those principles in place and in our minds to try to help us stretch the dollars as best we can. One of the ideas we're going to look at as well is program-based budgeting for recreation and parks, so we can kind of have a better idea about each individual program. We're going to evaluate our service delivery partnerships with area governments. We've had some success in that in the past year. We're reworking our agreement with the county on animal services operations is one example of that. And I know we've got a couple of cities that are interested in some partnerships on some other services that we haven't quite ironed out yet. But you'll hear more about that too. We're trying to figure out, we are certainly function as a region, here, and we don't have to always be so concerned about our city limit boundaries. And then finally, I think, again, back to utilizing Davenport and get their help to write and adopt some fiscal policies that help us put ourselves in the best posture for a future rating analyst. If you haven't been through that process, they scrutinize everything that you do. We want to be ready for that well in advance. So that wraps up my remarks. I want to thank our budget team. Peggy Reese, as you know, our finance director, leads us through the process. Nolan Kirkman, Rachel Kelly, Chad Slaughter make up the rest of our budget team, and we've lots of hours. They've done a great job getting us to this point this evening. Finance staff who supplies tons and tons of data for us and kind of keeps the ship afloat while we're all working on budget. And then all our city department heads for their role in helping us figure out how to balance this and how to use each dollar in the most wise way that we can. So I want to thank that entire group. Thank you for our elected officials for your constant guidance and your openness to new ideas and doing things differently from time to time. And with that, Mayor, I'll yield the floor back to you if you want to take public comments. I'll be happy to take questions from council members and/or public members that you recognize.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any questions from council before we begin the public hearing? This is a public hearing. If anyone on this side of the room would like to speak at this time. Anyone on this side of the room? Do I hear a motion from council to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is passed. Public hearing is now closed. Do I have any questions from council, or do I hear a motion?
I'd just like to make a couple of comments, if we could, Mayor. First of all, thanks to the public who was involved in this process, certainly the effort of the city staff and preparation and analysis of the budget. And all of you guys who set through all of this on a daily basis to get to where we are. I think what Hard mentioned, I think we said, first of all, we need a big thanks to our local business community. No matter what type of size of business, our citizens who supported those local businesses in our development community who has helped us in terms of expanding our tax base. We're talking about $60 million for general fund budget. The two key areas that we have to grow in to be able to maintain that is you got to grow your tax base, and you got to rely on the sales tax. And that goes back, frankly, to the private sector. And sometimes I don't think we thank them for investing their money in businesses here that helps us generate that revenue that's so essential to our general operation. Also, I think we need to recognize our state elected officials. I don't recall, and I've been doing this for a while, but in 1 year that our Senator Rick Gunn, our House Member Steve Ross, and House Member Dennis Rydell have worked with us more closely in continuing to help us prosper as a community. And it's sometimes we can always find fault with people. I think it's time to recognize them because they've been a really a good partner for us throughout this year. Finally, as a community and as elected board, we continue to discuss some of the issues that Hard mentioned, some intriguing projects which many believe could be substantial benefit to a number of our residents in our city. Decisions on these projects will not be easily made, primarily because of political financial investment which can be required of citizens to make this work. These discussions will continue over a period of time, and I would urge our citizens to take part in those discussions and provide input as we continue to try to strategically map where this community is going over the next 10 to 15 years. Many of these projects will require substantial capital investment, without question. And how we pay for it, obviously, in multiple ways, financing, one thing certainly we need to look at. But the reality of it is, it comes back. Tax base grew this year of 7.07% to be able to afford this budget as we see it here today on the general fund side. Tax base isn't going to grow 7% every year. I wish it was, but I don't think it will be. So we really have to look at some of these really interesting projects that's being discussed and see how they might be implemented. And I think before we get too far along in the process, we certainly need input from citizens. Some citizens, may not even know about it, and how we alert them and continue to keep them updated on this. Certainly, I'm open to suggestions on that. But, that's kind of where we are in this budget. Water and sewer side, huge budget for us. Frankly, as Mr. Pass will tell you, we're going to be dependent on state regulations going forward in terms of the impact it might have in reference to utilities and water and sewer. So that's another factor we'll be just dealing with over the next 3 years, I'm sure.
Any other council comments, or do I hear a motion on the two items?
I'd like to make a couple of comments myself to sort of echo Harold's comments. We've been very fortunate. We've gone over 12 years without a tax increase, and that's due to economic growth and the businesses that Harold alluded to, and our ability to have good development come in and to keep things moving and progressing in the right way. That's unheard of in a budget that's grown the size of our budget during that period of time. Furthermore, we heard from New Leaf Society tonight. We've got a project, the animal shelter, going on now. Public-private partnerships are really, really important in a community our size. And being able to leverage the relationships that Brett Davis talked about standing up here just a few moments ago is what gives us the ability to maneuver through those and pull those off. Our staff's to be commended. We're always looking for ways to leverage federal dollars. We talked about a build grant last night that could provide up to $25 million towards a project that we're exploring as we speak. You know, the FTA, the Federal Transit Authority, that's 1.8 million that we leverage, that comes in to allow us to put money with it and provide a service that really has a positive impact both for the community needs and for economic development long term. And to Harold's point, as we're continuing to grow, we are talking about, you know, perhaps building buildings or adding programs and things like that. The capital cost is easy, but the ongoing upkeep and the staffing is perpetual. That's the thing that keeps going. And then, you know, the last piece is our water and sewer team. It is an enterprise fund. It does dovetail. They cover their expenses. They truly operate at a level that has always been, I've been truly proud of how well that organization's held things together. You know, we're a regional water provider. Without being able to provide water regionally to Greensboro and to some of the other municipalities, our rates would change drastically. The infrastructure that we have is there. It's already in the ground. We've got to keep it up, and we need to, quite honestly, we need to sell water in order to do that to these other municipalities. But there's industries that will approach $1 million a year in water rents from us. Local companies, not counting their property tax, not counting the sales tax that may or may not be generated off of their goods and services, but just the amount of water that they use. So there's a tax side to it, and then there's a fee side on the enterprise fund with water and sewer. But to Harold's point, as the economy grows, we tend to try to grow with it to be sure we're providing resources that we've always sort of had on that wish list of things that we need to do, or the things that you say, when we get enough money, we've got to do that. There's lots of things that we've got to continue to do to take care of what we have. We've got to consistently be mindful that as that revenue stream slows down a little bit, we're going to have to slow down a little bit with it. We've been very fortunate, had good fiscal management. Nothing in my eyes tell me that it's going to be any different moving forward. So that's the challenge that we have. And very fortunate to have the legislators that we have. We need money for a project, and we go out and start asking around. We generally find a little bit to add to it. Those individuals are very, very mindful of how fragile a municipality can be when big projects are before us, and some of which they mandate. So it's all a relationship-based, cognitive-driven, disciplined approach that we must be mindful of every day.
Other council comments, questions, or do I hear a motion?
I would just like to follow up on something that Harold said about engaging the public and having people ask us questions about some of the things that we're thinking about doing, like the police building and like a Western Rec Center and renewing Maple Avenue and those kinds of things. I'd really like to hear what people have to say about that, and I suspect that they don't know a whole lot about it. And the best way to find out would be to talk to one of us and become engaged in the conversation about it. So I particularly like that thought that we need to hear what people have to say about it. Follow us along as we go through this process.
Anything else from council? Do I hear a motion regarding the two items?
I move that we adopt the budget for 2019-20, including the proposed inspection fees and water and sewer rates, and adopt the grant project ordinance for the 2019-2020 community development program.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions regarding the motion to adopt both the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget ordinance, including the inspection fees and water and sewer rates, and the grant project ordinance for the 2019-2020 community development program? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is passed. We appreciate everyone being here to participate in our budget discussion. At this time, we'll move to item 2. Public hearing has been set to consider an application to rezone from R15 residential district to CR conditional residential district for the use of a church with future phased expansions. The property is located at 1230 St. Mark's Church Road, referenced as Alamance County Tax Identification Numbers 106999, 106994, 107065, 107067, 107069, 107073, 107068, 107071, and 107070. This time we recognize Director of Transportation and Interim Director of Planning and Community Development, Mike Miller.
Good evening, Mayor. Mayor, before we get started, I do want to bring to the council and to the public's attention that I do attend St. Mark's Church. That is the item that's before us. There is not a conflict of interest regarding any of the activities that we're going to be discussing tonight, but I did want to make that public.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, you do have before you a request to rezone properties located at 1230 St. Mark's Church Road from residential district to a conditional residential district. The map in front of you displays that. The corner here is on actually both sides of the road, south of St. Mark's Church Road, as you see. There's in this area. This is used for parking in an athletic field at this time. The rest of the campus is on the other side of the street. Also note Willow Oak Drive through the middle. I'm going to switch over to a Google Earth map. We can always come back to this if we have any questions about the map. Give you a little further. So we zoom out. I mentioned St. Mark's Church Road. This is Church Street. The intersection is just improved by NCDOT or is underway with DOT for improvements at Williamson. Of course, you have the interstate down in this area and the retail development. Don't want to leave out a park, so we'll update the Jefferson Park. This request is to allow a two-phase expansion of St. Mark's Road, St. Mark's Church, excuse me. The first phase would include expansion of existing parking, an entry plaza, a new lobby, and an education building, and a multi-use path along Fuller Street, as indicated on the site plan. What you see in the orange, or the brown, it's on your screen, is phase one. I'm going to point to the parking expansion at the top here, the entry plaza, the new lobby area, the new education area, and then I mentioned the multi-use path, which connects to an existing path at this point along the frontage of the property on Peter Street. That's phase one. Phase two may include, and I'll come back to that as well, may include abandonment of the right-of-way on Willow Oak Drive between Garden Road and Peter Street. Willow Oak Drive will be open to the public, but will be maintained by the church. The request of this abandonment will be in a separate public hearing before City Council in a separate request. So it may be done as phase two. Phase two is what you see in the blue. We'll also include a new building and more parking expansions in order to remove the parking on the west side of St. Mark's Church Road, as indicated on this site plan as well. As you know, currently the existing parking is here, there's athletic field here, so that will be removed in phase two. We remove the campus across the street. You see the new building expansion here, parking expansion down in this area. An amenity here that's it's a campus walkway with landscape accents, and then an education and playground expansion. So that's phase two of that. The project has received approval from the Technical Review Committee, and on April 22nd of 2019, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend the rezoning request. The comprehensive land use plan calls for this area to be suburban residential. The church is allowed within that classification by special use permit or conditional zoning. Staff recommends approval of the conditional rezoning request with the attached conditions. I'll also mention that they had two neighborhood meetings. I'll allow the applicant to explain those. Tonight, Mr. Stephen Troutman is here to present the application, and of course, we'll be glad to answer any questions afterwards. Is this good enough for you?
That's good, yeah, that's good. Give me here or there?
Either one.
Okay. Thanks, Mike, and thanks to the council for your time this evening. I'm Stephen Troutman with Equip Studio, architect on the project. Also here with our team, Jordan Turner with St. Mark's Church, and Joe Bryant is the civil engineer on the project. Just to kind of walk you through a little bit about our improvements for phase one and phase two. We've worked with city planning and zoning as well with this, but Mike mentioned phase one essentially has two building additions. The church had a couple goals for us in this first phase to address. And the first one, they really wanted to kind of expand the front door, make that a little more of an obvious welcoming entry to the church, kind of on the east side for Willow Oak Drive. The current entry is a much smaller kind of vestibule within the two buildings, kind of a breezeway style entrance. So with our first, it's a single-story new lobby, kind of in the very center of campus there. Along with that, we would also propose to include kind of a plaza, which is sort of underneath that larger orange block, which is kind of a little bit of an organic form there. There would be kind of some outdoor gathering space with some shade trees. Just kind of, again, kind of make that a little more of an obvious front door, welcoming front door. And then some rework of that existing parking area is what the rest of that kind of orange block highlights. And the second building addition is kind of around south there, on the southeast corner of the building. That would focus on the children's programming, was the second kind of major component of the project. So we would allow to have a couple classrooms in that expansion, as well as a children's large group space for their worship services or worship meetings together. And it's also helping us, we're doing a larger renovation of the first floor existing classroom wing that will kind of tie in with our new lobby, allow for a kids check-in that's just a little more welcoming for first-time families, and kind of helping that whole first story flow together. Along with that, we're proposing to install, as Mike mentioned, the Peeler Street multi-use path. You can kind of see that dashed orange line. It would connect to the existing path that goes from Peeler up to Garden. So we would kind of be adding another segment toward Joe C. Davidson Park as part of our first phase. So Joe Bryant's plans have that detailed. We've sent in for TRC approval. And then we've also shown the last piece for phase one would be two proposed parking expansions kind of right off Garden at the north end of the property. So with that, we're proposing to be able to pave within a portion of the setbacks. We would again submit fully developed civil plans for TRC approval. But our proposal in the development conditions is stating that we wouldn't pave any closer to Willow Oak Drive and the adjacent existing lots kind of on both sides there to the south. So on phase two, Mike kind of mentioned these, but the building expansion portion will be right there in the center. The church would like to look at potentially some larger upper elementary youth classroom areas, also focusing potentially on some community program elements. We talked a little bit about a potential gym space. We definitely would kind of reprogram once we get toward phase two with the church. And then along with that, on the west side of St. Mark's Church Road, you're seeing the multi-use path to be added in phase two for that stretch of the property. For parking in phase two, we've shown a block at the southeast side of the property there at Peeler and Willow Oak. That's currently existing as a gravel parking lot. Again, pending fully developed civil TRC plans, we propose to pave that and also expand parking on the other side of Willow Oak. This would all include landscape buffers between those and Peeler Street, so that there's no just kind of sea of parking there across Peeler. We would make sure to maintain landscape buffers around all perimeters there. But the essential goal with that would be to allow the church to transition the larger portion of its campus onto the east side of St. Mark's, so they kind of get a fully centralized campus feel with that main entry into the first phase lobby. And then, as Mike mentioned, showing a kind of a diagonal pedestrian walkway there that will cross Willow Oak. We've worked a little bit through with planning and zoning is a potential design concept to provide some landscape accents and some kind of pavers crossing at Willow Oak. So it's kind of got a little more of that good pedestrian thoroughfare type feel to it. So what we would need with that in order to have landscaping and some of the elements that close is to have the potential abandonment to a private right-of-way for St. Mark's. We don't propose, if this were to be pursued by St. Mark's, we don't propose any width reductions or access changes to the road. It would simply be kind of a right-of-way transfer that would allow them to maintain that road privately and do those landscape accents. But again, we are proposing that would only be considered as a phase 2 item. I believe that's the plan that we've kind of developed, breaking out by phase. If there's any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Troutman. Any questions from council? I do have one item more towards staff, recognizing that the UDO is coming up for approval hopefully this summer. Have they been provided with recommendations to try to bring this in alignment with some of the new UDO considerations?
We discussed that today. The only thing that we identified that may be different would be signage.
Okay. All right.
That may be-
Otherwise, it'll be generally
Otherwise-
conforming to the new.
In general.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from council? Thank you. You'll have an opportunity after comments to answer any questions from the
Okay.
speaker. This is a public hearing. If anyone on this side of the room would like to speak regarding this topic. Anyone on this side of the room? Do I hear a motion from council to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Do I hear any further questions, comments from council, or do I hear a motion regarding this item? Council has been provided with suggested verbiage for consistency and inconsistency statements regarding the motion on the blue sheet, so you may see them referred to.
I just have a comment that I'm really pleased to see this in phase 2 abandoning that west campus parking, because that seems to be a safety issue for people going to church there. That looks like a really good idea, and it's a very nice plan.
Other council questions, comments? Do I hear a motion regarding this item?
I move that we approve this request to rezone from R15 residential district to CR conditional district. The property is located at 1230 St. Mark's Church Road and referenced as Alamance County tax parcel identification numbers.
That's spelled out.
10699, as spelled out in the agenda. The motion is based upon the consistency of the proposed rezoning with the comprehensive plan, in that the future land use map in section 4 of land use of the comprehensive plan calls for this area to have traditional residential and suburban residential uses. The request is in a zoning district that allows religious institutions by special use permit or through conditional zoning. The development incorporates requirements identified in both the greenways and bikeways plan, map 3.4A, comprehensive network Northwest Burlington, and the pedestrian master plan, map 3.4, pedestrian network recommendation map, Southwest Grid. This action is reasonable and in the public interest in that the comprehensive plan calls for residential uses in the area, and this use was approved by a special use permit in 2000, making it a compatible use in the area. The request is compatible with the existing zoning in the area, and connections will be made to the existing pedestrian greenways network.
Do I hear a second to that?
Second.
Any questions regarding the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is passed. Mr. Troutman, Mr. Turner, Mr. Bryant, we appreciate you being here this evening. We look forward to the project.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Moves us to item 3, under new business. City Council will consider temporarily closing the following streets on Saturday, September 14, 2019, from 9 a.m. until 12 noon during the annual Walk to End Alzheimer's fundraiser, contingent upon meeting the requirements in the special events application permit. The streets to be closed are East Front Street from South Spring Street to South Worth Street, and South Main Street from East Front Street to Davis Street. This time we recognize event organizer Kimberly Blanchard.
Thank you, I'm happy to be here. So good evening, Mayor Baltunas and City Council. Thank you for having me here this evening. The Alzheimer's Association is planning to host our annual Walk to End Alzheimer's fundraiser through the streets of downtown Burlington on Saturday, September 14th. The walk is scheduled to begin at 10 o'clock in the morning at the historic train depot. The walk will utilize Main Street from the historic depot in downtown Burlington down to the intersection of Main and Kitchen Street at the YMCA, and then return to the historic depot As Mayor Beltutis mentioned, we are requesting to close the following streets in downtown Burlington from 9 a.m. until noon. East Front Street from South Spring Street to South Worth Street, and South Main Street from East Front Street to Davis.
Any questions regarding this request? Do I hear a motion from council?
I'd make a motion that we approve the request to temporarily close the street contingent upon it meeting all requirements and the special events application process.
Second.
Any questions regarding the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion is passed. Thank you. We look forward to your event this fall. Item 4 under new business, City Council will consider approving the Community Development Program 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan. This time we recognize Community Development Administrator Sonia Grandal.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Planning Department does ask that the City Council consider approving the program year 2019-2020 one-year action plan of the CDBG program. In your packets, you were given a spreadsheet that detailed the annual action plan budget as well as a budget summary program summary sheet of all the plans and projects that will be occurring during the 1920 fiscal year. I do want to bring your attention to 2 or actually 3 things in the actual request. So there was a difference between the estimated and our final amount. So we did receive our final allocation amount a couple of days before we came for our public hearing initially. And so that increased allocation amount, that final allocation amount is $465,963. This was an increase of $66,321 versus what we had estimated versus what our final allocation amount was. We also ran under budget from a previous fiscal year program. We ran under budget by approximately $21,000. So we have allocated or reallocated that $21,000 to a project in the 1920 fiscal year. And we reallocated that $21,000 and the $66,000 to 3 different programs. We reallocated approximately $5,000 to administration, approximately $22,000. We spread that over our public service requests that we received from nonprofits. One public service recipient did not actually turn in their audited financial statement by the deadline that was imposed on them. So we reallocated that nonprofits to the other nonprofits. So that increased their amounts as well. And then we had approximately $60,000 that was allocated to public facilities infrastructure project, which is on the Bond Street sidewalk project. So those were the 3 main reallocation amounts that we had in the 1920 annual action plan. I do also want you to note, and I think that our city manager actually noted this as well during his presentation, is that we don't have our final home allocation amounts yet. Once we do receive those, we'll have to come back and do a budget amendment.
Thank you. Any questions from council regarding this item?
Where's the Vine Street?
Vaughn Street is the whole entire street of Vaughn Street is over in East Burlington.
It's actually from Beaumont up to out to Church Street. It's a section just west of the Department of Social Services and Hotel Road.
At Vaughn.
Yeah, Bond.
Vaughn, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's the connection from the transit shelter to the health services. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion regarding this item?
I move that we approve the 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan of the Community Development Program.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions regarding the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion approved. Thank you. That completes our regular agenda. We had no public comments signed up prior to the meeting. At this time, are there any city council comments?
Here, I just have one comment. I would like to recognize a special guest that slipped in on us tonight, our beloved former Mayor Ronnie Wall, who missed us so much he had to sit in on another budget
Exactly.
meeting. It's good to see you, man.
Welcome back. Thank you. Who just received a special award from the North Carolina League of Municipalities just a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you.
Lifetime achievement membership. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
A pure legend in East Burlington.
Metalwood too.
Metalwood too.
Metalwood too. The roads are paved up to his house. On the other side,
That's what you get for retirement.
Any other council comments? Couple quick announcements. Folks may have noticed down at City Park, there's some commotion going on around the carousel. The folks from Carousel and Carvings are in town working to disassemble the carousel prior to its full restoration. You'll notice folks down there do the rest of the week as they continue to pack that carousel up to bring it up to Marion, Ohio for the coming months and years to finish that full restoration and improvement so that folks can continue to enjoy that for generations to come. As mentioned, there's a couple events going around Link Transit this week since it is our anniversary of that event. Until the 7th, fares will be free on Link Transit. We encourage folks to get out, try out the system, check out where it'll take you around the community, and get to meet some of the other fellow riders on that system. On the 6th, the birthday for Link Transit, we'll have a number of rider events and special birthday cake at the Transit Hub. Folks are encouraged again to come out and celebrate with us. A special announcement regarding expansion of service on the system. We recently added another stop on the Orange Line near the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club in response to the movement of the food pantry to that facility. And that's helping folks who need to access that food pantry be able to access it more readily by bringing that transit stop closer to the services there. And then our adoption center, undergoing renovations, is currently promoting the summer is cooler with pets, and my wife and I would agree with that. You can adopt any cat or dog for $20 going on this month. And then as Christopher Tate mentioned at the beginning, we encourage all folks to go out and check out the Amateur Radio Field Day, June 22nd at 2 p.m. until June 23rd at 2 p.m. My wife and I have had the opportunity to go the last couple of years, and it's truly impressive the skill of the folks there and what they're able to do and who they're talking to around the country and around the globe. And as Christopher mentioned, you can try your hand. They're happy to show you how to use the equipment, and it's really fun. So we encourage you all to stop by and check it out. And again, that's over at the Police and Fire Training Facility.
One quick comment is I serve on the Salvation Army Advisory Board, and we certainly, on behalf of the board, we certainly appreciate the new stops because that will benefit many people. That's critical.
Yeah, we appreciate the Salvation Army stepping up to fill that need in the community. We know it was not easy to shoehorn a food pantry into that facility.
To absorb that, it took some doing.
All right, any other council comments?
I'd just like to make one comment to the former mayor. And I'm sure Mr. Kirkman will appreciate this. All the years we talked about public transportation, there was one number we always talked about, Mr. Mayor, was $419,000. We're still under $419,000.
Great
So
job,
I had to
guys.
tell you that so that you keep our word.
And that's with expanding services.
That's what expanding service.
Which, by the way, I meant to mention this last night at our Park Board of Trustees meeting. Park's expanding our Route 4 services. We didn't, I failed to mention that last night, but so our park and ride lots through Alamance County, and then as it heads on east to Chapel Hill, there's going to be some expanded service routes around there. Fantastic. Very busy.
Manager,
Just one thing, Cheryl Brown, our interim HR director, is here this evening, and this will be, she's in her final week serving as our interim HR director. I thought it'd be a great time to express our appreciation and thanks to Cheryl. She's done a wonderful, wonderful job in helping us over the last 4 months or so in human resources and provided a steady hand and wonderful advice all along the way. So I see other department heads nodding in agreement. So thank you, Cheryl. We appreciate your service.
Any further comments? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So vote.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening.